Well, it's hard to believe. It's down to the final week. Man, how fast has this season gone by? But now it's time for my last picks of the 2016 NFL season. And before I begin, I want you all to know, on Monday, after the season's over, I'm going to make my playoff picks too. So anyways, last week I went 11-5. I think for like the second straight week in a row or something like that. It's quite impressive. I think that's like my third best record this year, right behind 11-4 like in middle of the season. Then of course 12-4 to start the year. That was my best. And so far I'm at 608% and winning percentage so far. And then of course we get to the playoff bracket, which right now, if the season ended today, it would be the Patriots and Raiders with the byes. The Dolphins going to the Steelers. The Chiefs going to the Texans in the AFC. Then the NFC, it's the Cowboys and Falcons out of nowhere now have the number one pick. Two spot. With the Lions going to the Seahawks and the Giants going to the Packers. And from what I see, I say in the AFC would be the Steelers beating the Dolphins, which sets them up at the Raiders. The Chiefs beating the Texans, which sets them up at the Patriots. The Patriots beating the Chiefs. The Steelers beating the Raiders. And then the Patriots beating the Steelers in the AFC Championship. On the NFC side, the Seahawks beating the Lions. The Packers beating the Giants. Then the Falcons beat the Seahawks, the Cowboys beat the Packers, and then the Cowboys beat the Falcons in the NFC Championship, and then the Patriots beat the Cowboys in Super Bowl 51. So let's get my picks underway, and I'm going to try and remember every single playoff clinching scenario as much as possible. So we're going to get started with the Ravens going to the Bengals, and although the Ravens are eliminated, they still have a shot to get their first win season since 2014. But unfortunately, the Ravens have not won in Paul Brown Stadium since 2011. And remember, a bunch of those years, they've been pretty crushed when they went to Cincinnati. So I think that's going to be the case too. Well, not crushing defeat, but I think the Bengals would win 24-17. And then it's the Jaguars going to the Colts. The Colts still trying to avoid their first losing season since 2011. And I heard just earlier when I looked at the games to determine who's going to win, that Robert Mathis is going to retire after this game, which is going to be so sad to see another great defensive player gone. And of course, Doug Marrone has that impressive victory over the Titans. Maybe if he does a good job against the Colts, and maybe even somehow pulls off an upset, maybe he'll get the job. We'll have to wait and see. But I don't think that's going to be happening. And the Colts, I think, would win 42-24. And then finally, we get to a game that has significant playoff matters. And that's the Patriots going to the Dolphins. Of course, if the Patriots win or the Raiders lose later on in the day, the Patriots will clinch home field advantage for the first time since 2014. But if the Dolphins somehow win and the Chiefs lose, the Dolphins could possibly leap up to the 5th seed. So they got to win this one. And The Patriots have not won in Miami since 2012. I remember everyone said, no, the Dolphins are not going to beat the Patriots in 2013, and I said they would. Oh, shit, they did win 2013. And then 2014, there's no way the Dolphins are going to beat the Patriots in the season opener. I predicted they were. Oh, shit, I was right again. And then last year, there's no way the Dolphins are going to beat the Patriots and prevent them from getting the first number one seed, which I predicted they would. Oh, shit, they did. So, for the last 3 years, I've picked that the Dolphins would win, even though everyone said they were not going to win, and they somehow pulled it off. And honestly, I think in pretty convincing cases, I don't understand how anyone could say the Dolphins would never beat the Patriots in Miami anytime soon. And I think this time around, now the Dolphins are 10-5 and playing a lot better, I think no one's going to easily say the Patriots are going to beat the Dolphins this time. And I think that's going to be the case as the Dolphins beat the Patriots 23-20 and prevent Patriots from clinching home field advantage at the moment and maybe giving the Dolphins the 5th seed. And then it's the Cowboys going to the Eagles. And of course, Cowboys clinched everything all the way. But it would be nice if they did play all the stars at least, even though they don't need to win. Wouldn't it be nice to finally have your best season ever at 14-2? Since the best you've ever done was 13-3 a couple times. Just thinking about that, it would be nice. But of course, well, actually, the last couple times, I think the Cowboys have beaten the Eagles every year since 2012. And a couple of them have been pretty dominant fashions, because last time Eagles won 2011 when they destroyed them on that Sunday night game. But of course, historically, they've split it, pretty much, I think. Last year they split it, then 2014 they split it, 2013 split, last time, 2012, when the Cowboys swept it. And I think the Eagles are playing much better. I mean, for crying out loud, the Eagles went down to Arlington. They almost pulled off the win in overtime, for crying out loud. So this Eagles team is much, much, much better this time than it were a couple, like last year. So I think the Eagles would be able to pull off the victory 31-23. And then it's the Bears going to the Vikings. The Vikings are trying to avoid their first losing season since 2014. And boy, how have the mighty have fallen. Remember that 5-0 start with that really strong defense? And how they've gone since? Oh, that's right, 2-8. 2-8 after that 5-0 start. And I mean, they've been quite competitive, but just isn't enough. The injuries have affected them. Not having Bridgewater, not having AP, and of course, that Sam Bradford trade was completely useless. So now you're going to most likely get rid of him and have Bridgewater start again unless they're stupid enough to keep Stafford as the starter. And now you don't have a first-round pick. It was a terrible trade. Just accept it already, crazy Vikings fans. And of course, the Vikings, they've actually had their number against the Bears, I believe, for last decade or so when they host them. And I think, of course, the Bears are definitely dog shit. I wonder if John Fox is probably going to be on his way out the way they've been playing this year. And, of course, the Vikings would probably win it 27-10. And then it's the Bills going to the Jets. The Bills trying to avoid their first losing season since 2013. And, of course, since they're eliminated, they still maintain the longest playoff drought in the league. Haven't been playing in the playoffs since 1999. That's going to be 18 years now going into the next season. And, of course, both Rex and Rob have been fired. And I don't even know who's going to be the Bills' head coach for this game. But I feel so bad for him since he's most likely going to be gone, too, after this game, since it's just a filler. Which I honestly never get. I never got why they would fire Gus Bradley and Jeff Fisher so irked me with just a couple games left. Why? Why not just let them stay and then fire them right afterwards? I'll never get that. But of course, the Jets beat the Bills earlier this year. Back when, remember, 0-2, they were talking about firing him then, and then they fired a defensive coordinator for off defensive coordinator for no reason or something like that. Never made any sense. No, it was an offensive coordinator. And of course, the Jets have historically. Well, not really historically the last couple years. Last 2 years, they've been swept by the Bills in those last 2 years. So, the Bills have their number recently, and the Bills are most certainly better. But, of course, I think the Jets would somehow pull it off 27-20. And then it's the Browns going to the Steelers. If the Steelers win, they definitely would guarantee the 3rd seed. But if they lose and the Texans win, they might fall to the 4th seed. I'm not sure. I've seen sites saying they have already clinched the 3rd seed. Some have not, so I guess I have to wait and see. I think I've checked the tiebreakers myself, and I think there was still a possibility that Texas take the 3rd seed. But of course, if the Browns lose, they definitely would guarantee the 1st overall pick in 2017, which would be the first time they'd have it since 2000, I believe. And that's something that shows how shitty the Browns are. And of course, even though I heard the Steelers are benching Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, they're still going to destroy the Browns 45-3. And it's the Panthers going to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers still trying to get possibly their first win season since 2010. And if they win and the Redskins lose and whoever loses the Packers and Lions game, that might be the only way the Buccaneers can get into playoffs for the first time since 2007. So I had to look it up again. But I can't remember if it was the Packers or Lions, but I'm sure one of them in particular had to lose in order for the Buccaneers to have any shot to make the playoffs. And of course, historically, the last bunch of years, the Buccaneers, I think, had the Panthers' number when they host them. And they've definitely played a lot better when they host them. And of course, the Panthers have that shitty pass defense. The team is overall terrible after that 15-1 record last year. And the Buccaneers did go into Carolina and beat them pretty good on Monday night. And I think that's going to happen this week, as they sweep the Panthers 31-17 and get their first win season since 2010. And hopefully for them, enough luck to get a playoff spot for the first time since 2007. Then it's the Texans going to the Titans. And, of course, no Mariota for the rest of the season, which sucks. But, of course, the Titans still have a shot to get their first win season since 2011. And, of course, the Texans already clinched a playoff spot. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I think if they win and the Texans and the Steelers lose, the Texans might get the 3rd seed, but I think they're stuck at the 4th seed, so I had to look that up. But of course, historically, it's actually been, I think the Texans have a slight lead in the record since like this decade when they go to Tennessee, but the Titans have been playing pretty good against the Texans when they host them during that time. So I think that's going to happen this week as the Titans would win 30-20. And since the Texans have a better division record than the Titans, they still would have the division. I think the Texans are undefeated right now in the division still, whereas the Titans were, I think, 1-4. They split it with the Jaguars. They got swept by the Colts. And, yeah, that's 1-3. No, that's 1-4 because they lost to Texas too. So, yeah. Doesn't matter what happens if they do tie, the Texans still have the division. But at least the Titans could say, hey, at least we got a win record because nobody thought they were going to get this far. I knew they were definitely better than the 3-13 record they were, but even I didn't think they were going to go 9-7. So, regardless, it still was a good season for them. Then we get to the 4 p.m. games, starting with the Saints going to the Falcons, and the final regular season game in the Georgia Dome, which, oh man, I know it's bad as an NFL fan to see that place going to be gone soon, but even more so as a monster truck fan. Oh man, I'm going to miss that place so much when it's destroyed. It's going to be so sad. And of course, the Falcons at least will still have one more game in the Georgia Dome, maybe 2, depending on what happens in the playoffs. But of course, the Falcons, if they win, they clinched first round bye for the first time since 2012. But if they lose and the Seahawks win, then they fall to the 3rd seed. So they gotta hope they either win, or if they don't, hope the Seahawks lose, they still get the 2nd seed. And of course, although that defense is still terrible, this team, the #1 offense in the league, the only team right now to score 500 points. Man, that's really impressive. But then again, that's happened over the last couple weeks. The 49ers, the Rams, the Panthers last week. So they've put up a shit ton of points, but against really terrible defenses and terrible teams. So I guess it's not quite that impressive. But hey, it's still pretty good results. But of course, historically, it's going back and forth between the Saints and Falcons when they play in the Georgia Dome. But of course, actually, last year the Saints did beat them. But of course, historically, also they've been playing very, very, very close. I think almost every single game, except for that 2012 one, I think was within a touchdown. And that's with a bunch of terrible Falcons teams and pretty much overall very good Saints teams. So, but I think it's going to be the Falcons winning 36-24, which would clinch them the 2nd seed, and the Saints would get their 3rd straight 7-9 record. And of course, you got to wonder what would happen to Sean Payton then, because although if the Saints do lose at 7-9, this is definitely the best 7-9 team they've had in that 3-year stretch. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with them. And then it's the Raiders going to the Broncos. And of course, if the Raiders win, they clinch first round bye for the first time since 2002. But if they somehow beat the Broncos and the Patriots lose to the Dolphins, then they clinch home field advantage, which would be quite unbelievable. But of course, too, if they lose and the Chiefs win, then they fall to the 5th seed. So that would be quite problematic. But unfortunately for them, since Derek Carr's injured, I think that is going to happen this week. But of course, even if they did have Derek Carr, I still think they could have not been able to beat the Broncos. I mean, the Raiders have... That's right, the Raiders did beat the Broncos last year, so it's not like they can't do it. But historically, the Broncos have had the Raiders' number when they come to Denver. And especially without Derek Carr this week, I think that is going to happen as the Broncos win 27-14. Officially give the Patriots home field advantage. And then after that, it's the Cardinals going to the Rams. And of course, oh boy, a bunch of years when the Cardinals go to the Rams, the Cardinals have actually, I think, had their number since 2010. I think they're 3-2 or 4-2 since 2010. So they really have a number against the Rams when they go to them, especially since the Cardinals are most certainly a better team right now than the Rams. Oh my God, the Rams are probably like one of the worst teams in the league. And of course, at the same time too, they have split it pretty much. But of course, another thing you gotta remember too, the Rams, for some reason, somehow play a little bit better when they play divisional opponents. I think they're 2-3 right now, considering how they're going 4-11 the rest of the season. So I think they could I think that I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals win, but something just tell me that the Cardinals are just going to screw up this one even more than the Rams, and I think the Rams would pull it off 21-14. And then it's the Chiefs going to the Chargers, and of course the Chiefs, if they win and the Raiders lose, the Chiefs would clinch the division, AFC West, and they would get first round bye. So there's a lot on the line for them, and of course this is the hopefully not the last regular season game in San Diego for the Chargers. Hopefully that doesn't happen. The Chargers stay in San Diego. Same goes with the Raiders staying in Oakland. I don't want either one of them to move. And of course, the Chiefs dominated the Chargers last year, but historically, since this entire decade, the Chargers have pretty much had the Chiefs' number. I think the Chiefs only won one game this decade there, and that was last year, I believe. Maybe they were somehow lucky and won in 2014, but I don't think that happened. And of course, the Chargers, they're definitely a lot better than 5-10. Even though that terrible loss to the Browns last week, they're most certainly better than 5-10. I think they have almost as many points scored as they have allowed. And of course, Phillip Rivers has been struggling the last couple weeks. That's really bad. But I think the Chargers are going to somehow pull off the upset and beat the Chiefs 34-30, which would knock the Chiefs all the way down to the 6th seed, as the Dolphins would take over the number 1 spot. It means 5th seed, and the Raiders would get a first round bye. And it's the Seahawks going to the 49ers, and of course, well, first off, if the 49ers win and the Browns win, then the 49ers maybe get the first number 1 pick. I mean, they're still in contention, so I guess that's possible. But of course, the more important thing is the Seahawks. If they win and the Falcons lose, then they clinch the number 1, the 2nd seed, which they need badly. They need that first round bye badly to recover from those injuries. But if they lose, and whoever, depending on how the Packers Lions game goes, they might be stuck at the 4th seed, which would be quite problematic. And of course, if they win and the Falcons win, they'll get the 3rd seed. So who knows exactly what will happen there? But the Seahawks, although they've definitely had the 49ers number the last couple years, it sucks I missed that old rivalry. I hope the 49ers get back so we can get that old Seahawks-49ers rivalry back. And of course, the 49ers are play much better at home, but I think the Seahawks would still squeak it out 22-17. And then it's the Giants going to the Redskins. The Giants already got the 5th spot secured. The Redskins can get in if they win. That's pretty much it. Win and they're in. Now, there's one scenario I'm going to mention coming up soon that would eliminate them no matter what if they win. You're going to get to that in a second. But of course, the Giants overall, I think, have the number. Actually, I think it's split between the two teams so far this decade. I think they're 3-3, with the Giants mostly destroying the Redskins when they beat them. But of course, the Redskins have had the Giants number 2. I think they pretty much just spanked them pretty good last year when they host them. And they did go to MetLife this year and won somehow. They pulled off that incredible win when they were, remember, 0-2. Giants were 2-0. Oh man! And of course, I think the Redskins would somehow pull off 31-28, punch them into the playoffs. But now we get to the final regular season game of the year, game number 256, and that's the Packers going to the Lions. Now, there's a lot of scenarios I can explain here. So if the Lions win, and they would get to the playoff spot, and they would get the NFC North for the first time since 1993, back when it was in the AFC Central, for God's sake, man. And of course, depending on the Seahawks go, they might have the 3rd seed, they might have the 4th seed. And if the Falcons lose, they might be able to get the 2nd seed, but I don't know about that since the Falcons and Lions have been tied overall the entire season, and the Falcons have always had the tiebreaker, so I think the Lions might not have a shot to get the 2nd seed. But even if the Packers lose, they still can get the 6th spot if the Redskins and Buccaneers lose. Now, just like for the Packers, if they win, they get the division, and of course, if they win, of course they can't get the 2nd seed because the Falcons beat them. They would get the 3rd seed if they're lucky enough that the Seahawks lose. But if the Seahawks win, they win. Then the Packers are stuck with the 4th seed. And as for the Lions, they still could get a playoffs the last spot if the Redskins and Buccaneers lose. But here's that scenario I'm talking about. There's one scenario for the Packers and Lions that both of them can make the playoffs. And that's if they tie at 9-6-1. If that happened, the Packers would win the NFC North because they beat the Lions earlier this year. And depending on what happens with the Seahawks, they might get the 3rd seed or maybe even fall to the 4th seed. But under this scenario, the Lions would get the last spot because the Buccaneers can't get better 9-6-1. The Redskins could get 9-6-1, but the Lions beat them, so that would guarantee the Lions the last spot. So, I mean, it's possible for both of them to get into the playoffs under that scenario. So maybe if they're lucky enough, maybe they should tie. That way both of them can get in. But, of course, now to the actual game. Oh, boy. I mean, the Lions the last couple, like 3 years, have had the Packers' number. But, I mean, come on, man. The Lions were 9-4. They blew it against both the Giants and Cowboys. The Packers are definitely hot. I think they have, like, the longest win streak in the league at the moment, or right up there. And, of course, remember what happened last year. The Lions had, I think it was a 20-0 lead going to halftime. They had a 23-20 lead on the final play. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers threw that Hail Mary. And, by the way, that was the worst defended Hail Mary. That was, like, one of the most easily catchable Hail Mary passes ever. There was no one covering from him. That was terrible defense on the Lions, and they deserved to lose for that one. And, of course, the Packers got that victory, too. And based upon that, I really don't trust the Lions. I probably would say they would win, but how can I really trust you if you're going to let that happen like last year? And, of course, you've had a lot of games this year where you had the lead, and you blew it. For crying out loud, man. So, of course, although I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions win, I think it's going to be the Packers, 27-21. And I wouldn't be surprised if the exact same thing happened last year. The Lions built up a big lead, and the Packers can't come back and throw another Hail Mary pass that is easily catchable, and the Packers would clinch the division, and the Lions would be eliminated. Alright, those are my picks for Week 17. And, of course, if I'm 100% correct, this is the playoff bracket. It would be the Patriots with the number 1 spot, the Raiders with number 2, Steelers with 3, Texans with 4, Dolphins with 5, and the Chiefs with 6. And the NFC, it would be the Cowboys the number 1 seed, the Falcons at 2, Seahawks at 3, Packers at 4, Giants at 5, and Redskins at 6. So that would be quite an interesting playoff bracket too. So I wonder if that's going to be the case. It's pretty much almost guaranteed a big chunk of this is going to be quite correct. But man, I can't wait for this tomorrow for the games. It's going to be very exciting. Hopefully it'll be one hell of a finish to the regular season as we get ready for the playoffs. And remember, on Monday, I'm going to make my playoff predictions. So see you